Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Wildstar. It's an MMO RPG. Some of you may not have heard of it, and this is kind of like my love letter to it because it is an amazing game, and I think that there are a lot of things that they've done right, and I think there are some things that they could actually do better. Now, full disclosure, I do not work for Wildstar, NCSoft, their parent, any of their affiliates, anything like that. This is not a paid promotion. Also, I don't get to play it as much as I used to, and that's because the system requirements for it have outpaced my poor laptop and PC. Um, I logged in the other day just to see if it was still there and make sure it was still good. But unfortunately, if there's any kind of population in like the server, the main cities, stuff like that, my poor PC and laptop can't handle it and the graphics, and it just stutters and slowly fills in things. It's not fun to play in that regard. But I'm going to tell you about the awesomeness that is Wildstar. So that's that too. This is how much I love this game. All right, Exiles. No, that's the Dominion. Sorry, that's the Exiles. The two factions in Wildstar. Unlike in World of Warcraft, where the Alliance and the Horde can be good and bad, in Wildstar the Dominions are pretty much are the bad guys. Thousands of years ago, a race of near omnipotent beings called the Elders raised the humans for the Dominion, Cassians, up and told them to rule the galaxy. And then they disappeared. Well, the Cassians did that. They have done their best to conquer the galaxy, and think of them as the Sith Empire from the Old Republic. That's how military and conquering, and everybody must be under our boot if we want the galaxy to be stable and to survive. The Exiles are those races that have given a big bunda, as it were, an old orc term, middle finger, to the Dominion and said they want to live life in their own terms. The game takes place on a planet called Nexus, which is the home of the Elders, and both the Dominion and the Exiles have raced there to make it their home. The Exiles because they need a home, because all of their planets have been conquered or whatnot by the Dominion, and the Dominion feel it is their birthright. So the Dominion races, you have the Cassians, who are humans. Okay, we all know what a human is. Moving on. The Draken, who are a bestial race, kind of like tieflings from D&D, very much about the hunt, about honor, things of that nature. Horns, cloven hooves, tails. I actually don't think they have hooves. No, they don't have hooves. They have feet. Anyway, the Chua, who best example I can think of is if you remember from Dragonlance, somebody took Tinker Gnomes and Kender, mated them together, and then made them animals. That's about it. They're quite insane, but they're mechanical geniuses, and they create stuff constantly. And the Makari, a race of sentient robots that were created by the Elders to keep an eye on the Dominion and make sure that they are doing everything that they're supposed to. The Exiles, they also have humans. And you have the Granok, who are living rock people, the Mordesh, which are space zombies. I know a lot of you are like, ooh, space zombies? Yes. And the Orin, who are basically like fairy-like. They have big floppy ears, most of them. They have tails, and they're very much connected to nature, things of that nature. Bad pun. But the gameplay is one of the best things about Wildstar. It has telegraphs. Now, anybody who plays WoW know that unless you interrupt a attack against you, it's going to hit. Even if you try to dodge to the side, the game still says, well, you were standing there when the attack was initiated, so therefore you get hit. As frustrating as it is, most WoW players have learned to kind of live with it. Not so in Wildstar. In Wildstar, you actually have telegraphs. You'll have an ability, you have instance abilities like every MMO does, and then you'll have a telegraph that shows you, the little bar fills up, okay, this attack is coming. You can actually dodge it, take no damage, and then roll around behind the enemy and hit them with your own attack. I mean, combat in Wildstar is actually one of the most fun things about it. It is not a click, 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 click. You can't do that. I mean, you can, but you're missing out on a huge potential of the game, which is a very active combat-oriented game. It requires you to think and be involved with it, which is wonderful. Another wonderful aspect of it is it's a sci-fantasy. It's not science fiction per se. It's closer to the science fiction of the Star Wars universe than Star Trek. Star Trek has actually inspired real life people to build devices that they saw in Star Trek and to figure out how it worked. Whereas Star Wars, most of us accept that most of the tech it's imaginary. It's fantasy tech. So Wildstar, it's the same thing. So you have the 8 races, technically only 7 because humans can be both Dominion or Exiles. You also have 6 classes. You have the warrior, who wields a giant 2-handed sword and has heavy armor. And before I go any further, most of the classes have 2 specs attached to them. A DPS spec, every class has a DPS spec, and either a tank or a healer spec attached. So you can actually very much decide how you want to play. You can make it where you play the game the way you want to play the game. Do you want to play DPS? Cool. Do you want to belong to a guild and you tank when you guys are doing dungeons and raids, but on your own you like to solo and you like to DPS? You could do that, and you can actually have gear and switch between specs and stuff like that. Another nice thing it does is it has abilities. Every class has a bunch of different abilities, and you have a action bar that you build with key bindings, and you get to decide what abilities you want in there and to how powerful you want to make them. And that probably is one of the best things about it. Like, okay, you can actually, it's like talents in World of Warcraft, but with more flexibility. It very much is like, okay, do you want to do this? Cool, you put that ability there. You want to do that? Cool, you put that ability there. You actually get to pick how you want your game to play. Wonderful. Anyway, warrior, big giant sword. They can tank or DPS. You have a stalker, who has a nano suit that can make them turn invisible, and they have twin blades. Think kind of like Wolverine crossed with a ninja. They can also tank or DPS, and they use medium armor. You have an engineer, which is the only pet class in the game, and you have robots that you can summon, and they help you out, and you wield heavy armor and a giant shotgun. I mean, that one is tank or DPS, and that's a lot of fun. It really is. Then you have the Espers, who are scions, basically, and they can either DPS or they can heal, and they wear light armor. You have the medic, who wears medium armor, and you've seen the shock paddles that people use in movies all the time to, like, clear. Yeah, that's what medics use as their weapons, and they fire out rays with that. They heal or DPS. And last but not least, you have probably my favorite class in the game, Spellslingers. Twin pistols that can fire magic out of it. I think it's honestly the coolest thing in the world. It's one of those classes that it's like I saw it and I was like instantly in love with it. Wildstar also has great cinematics that kind of move the story forward. Now that I've talked about what I love, let's talk about the problems that it does have. It lacks in end-game content, and a lot of MMOs, unfortunately, do. World of Warcraft is the king of that for a reason. When you level your character to max level in World of Warcraft, you're not done, not even by a long shot. You can play for months and months and months with your character at max level. In Wildstar, once I reached max level, I was very excited. I got to the end zones, and I was very bored. They have MMOs they have raids and dungeons and things of that nature. I tried a couple. You can group up. You can still do that, just like in WoW. But unfortunately, the graphic requirements meant I didn't get to enjoy them as much as I wanted to. The only couple raids that I did, I died a lot, and that's because everything was stuttering around me. It was a very frustrating experience for me. Now, if somebody who's PC, laptop, whatever, can actually handle the graphic requirements of Wildstar, they may have a better experience with it. Guilds are practically non-existent. There are a few of them out there, but It's not because the guilding system is very broken, because it's not. Making a guild is pretty easy. It's just for some reason there's not a lot of people that join them. And the biggest issue I have is the low population requirements. When Wildstar started out, they had a bunch of different servers. They had servers in Europe, they had servers in North America, they had PvE servers, they had PvP servers. Eventually, they ended up with, I think it was 2 servers. One was PvE, one was PvP. Now, if you are on a PvE server, you can actually do PvP. Unfortunately, if you are on a PvP server, you can't go PvE. If you're out in the world, if somebody from the opposing faction can gank you, and it can be pretty bad. So, I have heard that the battlegrounds in Wildstar are very frustrating because you need a minimum, I think it's 40 players, 20 on each side, to do it. And they have a hard time actually getting the number of players to do battlegrounds. It's one of those that, because it doesn't have the end game content, players get there and then they stop playing. And low population means people, when they want to come, they want to play the game the way they want to play it, whether it's PvP or you in dungeons, raids, what's not. There's not, depending on what point in the day, there's no population, or very low population. Very low population means you can't play the game you want. That is the one nice thing WoW has over it, is I know that when I log into WoW, if I want to do a dungeon, within a half an hour, I could be doing a dungeon. I really can. I mean, like, you cross-realm, sharding and stuff like that. You could do a dungeon at any time of the day. You could do a raid at any time of the day. In Wildstar, it's definitely much one of those that you can't. Now, Wildstar does have a subscription-based model, but it's also free to play. And unlike a lot of games, it is truly free to play. You're only allowed 3 character slots, but realistically, if you play the game and you play around with a character for a little while, if you're not liking that character, even if you only have 3 slots, it's not that big a deal. You delete it and you make another character and you just try it out until you find something you like. It rewards you for subscribing. I mean, you get lots of bonuses for subscribing. However, you can play the game completely free. You can, you can have skills, which is another one of those things that World of Warcraft does much better. I like the skills in Wildstar, but they need a lot of work. But if you are a fan of MMORPGs, or if you've watched this and you're like, hey, this sounds kind of interesting, I would actually hope that all of you out there who are watching this do give it a shot, because it is a fun game. And maybe if more players actually started playing it, they might be able to make more endgame content, and if they have more endgame content, then you can get more players to keep playing it once they reach max level, and things of that nature. It really does deserve a chance. I remember when they first came out, they said it was going to be a WoW killer, or at least players did, which it's a lot of hyperbole. Most games that tout themselves as a WoW killer usually end up failing, and I really hope that Wildstar does not fail. It's a fun game. I think they need to do a lot of things, such as they need to have more in-game content, higher population. They need to have... They're missing the ball. They're dropping the ball when it comes to cross-saturation. They need fiction, Wildstar fiction. They need t-shirts. They need toys. They need plushies and stuff like that. They need all these things because guess what? Nowadays, it's not enough to have a really cool game. You got to have the things that players want to own to show their love and appreciation for the game. I mean, I have plenty of World of Warcraft shirts. I have beanies, scarves, necklaces, things of that nature. I am very proud. I'm very proud of my love for World of Warcraft, and I would love to have Wildstar stuff like that. Wildstar fiction to be able to talk about online and say, hey, this is a really cool story. You should go read it. It's not out there. So I think that if they want to survive, they need to actually branch out. And somebody said, well, that costs money. And you are correct. These things do cost money. But it is an investment in their future. So, coming up on 15 minutes, this is where I got to stop it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do, don't forget to leave a like down below. If you are a first-time subscriber, welcome. I do a lot of talk about geeky stuff and a lot of talk about writing and things of that nature because I am a writer. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and you all have a wonderful day.